Down in old Kentucky, where horseshoes are lucky, there's a village smithy standing under the chestnut tree. Hear the hammer knocking, see the anvil rocking. He sings the boogie blues while he's hammering on the shoes. See the hot sparks a flying like 4th of July. He's even got the horses clomping bob down the avenue. Folks love the rhythm, the clang, bang, and rhythm. You get a lot of kick out of the blacksmith blues.
Down in old Kentucky, the horseshoes are lucky. There's a village smithy standing under the chestnut tree. Hear the hammer knocking, see the anvil rocking. He sings the boogie blues while he's hammering on the shoes. See the hot sparks a-flying like 4th of July. He's even got the horses clopping bop down the avenue. Folks love the rhythm, the clang, bang, and rhythm. You get a lot of kick out of the blacksmith blues.
Good morning, blacksmiths, and welcome to this episode of the Impractical Blacksmith podcast. You're here with me, Adam from Speargrass Forge, and joining me today is a lovely, amazing, beautiful Alexis from Transcendental Studios, and we also have in just calling it in today because he's a bit busy is Yamez. You can't see him, but you can definitely hear him. G'day, Yamez.
Hello.
Also, we have listening in over Discord. We have Trail Dust, and of course we'll say good morning to some of the people in the chat. And Trail Dust is of course first in the chat. He was nice and early there this morning. Good morning, Ben Toombs. We also have joining us a little bit later. We have Ulfbert Forge and who else? Jack Pines has just joined us as well. Jeff Killian, g'day. And so, how are yous all? How are we all travelling this week?
I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for it.
Oh, you're waiting for it. So, we'll start with you, Yamez. How was your week? No, wait. How was your week?
Set up. My week was really great. Solid streams. You know.
Okay. How
No
was
troubles.
your week?
There you go. Week
We
was
actually-
really. I worked on a billboard this week.
In a minute.
Yeah, we worked on it for. Yeah, it took a large portion of the pre-show. I worked on a billboard, the billboard electrical for. It was nuts. It was fun, but wired up some super crazy LED lighting on this billboard. Let me see. That's really the highlight of the work week. I did ultimately have to. I'm working on a driveway over at my brother's house, and me and my brother Zach, we had 20 tons of driveway material dropped off, and it was like, all right, now we got to lay it out. And I was looking at skid steers to rent or a bobcat to rent, and yeah, not at those prices. And so I grabbed a yard cart and a few shovels and rakes, and set to it.
My monitor.
I'm sorry, what happened?
Sorry, that was that. There's nothing I could do when I enter the stream, and I have to wait for the ad to that 1 second of ad before I can hit the mute button.
There you go. We should just get demonetized so we don't have ads. Nah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so shovels and rakes and several hours of work. We got some driveway material down and filled in some potholes and yeah, I actually sent Adam some pictures, to toss up and so you guys can see what the heck I'm talking about. If you'd like to show those. But
I forgot to hit transition. I'm not used to doing things. I had them up on. I have them up on
Welcome
the
to my
pre-stream.
nightmare.
I had them up on the
At least I
pre-stream.
didn't.
Welcome to my nightmare.
Whoops.
Yeah. But yeah, it's yeah, just a kind of a pain in the butt, but laying that all out, it's a lot smoother on their non-country cars. You know, but shovels and rakes and implements of destruction and glossy photographs and black and white with circles and arrows and writings on the back to explain what everything was. We got a good start. We still have a decent area to fill. It's just we ran out of steam, and we've got to save some of that pile because we'll be removing those decks and all that cinder block, and just going to do patio, ground level patio and some steps going up instead. But fun stuff. I will take a moment and scroll up in the chat because I didn't hear it yet. Good morning. We've got Trail Dust, Ben Toombs, Island Metal Forge. That's us. Hey, that's us. Trail Dust, Ulfbert Forge, Jack Pines Blacksmithing, Jeff Killian, Bortagov. What is up? Robert Whitney in the house, Transcendental Artist Studios. How are you all doing? All right, there you go, Adam. That's how you do that.
We'll put it.
Welcome to my nightmare.
When the Ahmeds leave, we'll put a poll up and see who did the intro better, and we can let the viewers and the listeners vote on how well we did.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, my week, just physical labor as usual, and today is Mother's Day, so I will be very likely kicking out here in the next handful of minutes to go prepare for that. That is the primary reason why Adam is hosting, and if y'all like him better, I got no problems making Adam host the on a more permanent basis. Because it is nice being on this side of the editing board. And that's me.
So, Alexis, how was your week?
Okay, well, yeah. My week was pretty good, I guess. I had an interesting situation, I guess. So I was in the Air Force, and my best friend was in the Air Force in Germany. Um, when I PCS to the States, we just kind of lost contact because I couldn't I couldn't afford to call Germany. It was like 50 cents a minute back then, and anyways, we lost contact, and like hadn't heard from the guy. The last week of April, 1997. Was the last time I saw him. He dropped me off at the temporary living facilities, and I watched him drive away in his 1981 Porsche 928S. And I was like, man, that's the last time I'm ever going to see that guy. And that's fairly accurate. And then he's a person that doesn't internet or doesn't like no social media stuff like that. And so and every couple of years, I get on the internet, or not a couple times a year. Ever since then, I get on the internet and I just do a quick search, try to find him, and always come up butkus, nothing. And then last week I was just hell. Last week I was coming. I lost my train of thought now. Last week I was sitting here and I was like, oh, I haven't tried LinkedIn because I know where he lives and I know where he works. I just can't get a hold of him, And then so I tried LinkedIn, and sure enough, there he was. I was like, well, I'll try to send him a message. You'll probably never get it, but it's worth a shot. So I sent him a message. I was like, hey, this used to be my name, and you might remember me from back in the day. If you want to get a hold of me, here's my number. And then the next morning he sent me a message back and was like, "Hey, what's up?" He's like, "I've actually been a subscriber to your YouTube channel for years." And I was like, "What? Are you freaking kidding me?" Anyways, we had a phone call the next day and or later that day, and it went well. you know, or at least it went semi well. I can be a bit much sometimes, especially when I'm nervous or sliding in or out of a panic attack, and which is kind of the spot I was at, just because it's like, and I haven't talked to this person in 27 years, and I mean, like, that was kind of a big deal, and or at least it was to me, and so I was a bit much, and yeah, I don't know. It was nice to get like caught up and all that. Um, in hindsight, I should have waited and been a little bit more relaxed, but hey, whatever. Uh, um, eh. But so anyways, the point being is I got to chit chat with a friend from way back in the day for a good minute. That made me feel really good. It was a really fun experience, and that leaves me with three people left that I can't find that are friends from back in the day, and I mean like 20 years ago back in the day that have disappeared. So chalked one of them off of my list, and that's it. Had a mediocre work week, um, and let me see. I'm going to be doing a little bit of rearranging in here today, or not rearranging. I don't know if you noticed, but the view is different now because I've changed the setup in my room, and I got a few more things to change today because it's raining outside, and I'm not going to go outside and play in the rain. So um, yeah, that's the long and short of it. That's my week, and yeah. So, Adam, how was your week? What did you get done this? Yeah.
That. Sorry, I'm doing a Yamas at the moment, and I'm maintaining my view on the streaming and everything like that, and it's saying the stream status is poor, even though it seems to be coming through well enough. So, so I was trying to reduce my drop frames and stuff, everything like that on my information, and it's not doing anything. So it is what it is. But it seems I seem to have the anti-Midas touch this week. So as I discussed the other week, my tractor broke down, and so this week it was my my whippersnipper, the brush cutter that we've been using to get rid of the gamba grass. It finally died. The other brush cutters that I had that were given to me were all completely ruined. So I had to turf them. One of my chainsaws gave out on me. My petrol blower gave out on me. And then, so Wednesday and Thursday, this was by Tuesday. Then Wednesday, I had a student come around. Now, those of you that follow me on Instagram would have seen Wilson. I didn't do a live stream with him this way, but we did some forging. Made another one of let me grab it. Another one of these incense holders. But this one was feather inspired, and we also did a candle holder. Each just that's a plan that we had out of my book, and I wanted to make it, just take some photos of it and stuff like that, and didn't quite come out as planned. I've got to go back and retry it, but I tried to cheat, and the cheating didn't work. So we ended up going a different way with that. But in the morning when I was setting up, if you notice, I'm kind of keeping my hands a little bit hidden at the moment. It's because I had a tungsten carbide wedding ring. Anyway, I was undoing the vise in the morning to set up for the day, and I tapped the handle of the vise, and my ring snapped and comes straight off my finger, which wasn't fun at all. So that's now sitting on the on my sideboard in the hallway, and discussed it with the wife, and she's not all that upset about it. So I'm going to make a new wedding ring out of a stainless steel nut, and going to have a little bit of a private ceremony with her, just to in order to keep it going. A little private ceremony just to what is it? Kind of bless the new ring. And then Thursday, Wilson had a lot of fun. Of course, bringing a hammer, he loves to do that type of thing. Him and his wife were really impressed about the things that he made. And then on Thursday, I had a young knife smith from my area come around, and he's been trying to have some time to get into my forge and do some work with me for about 2 years. I met him just before I moved, just after I moved here. And yeah, like I said, he's been trying to get out and do some stuff with me for about 2 years. And unfortunately, we just ever since I've had my little workshop built, just haven't had the time. Every time I've had the time, he hasn't been available, and when he's had the time, I hadn't been available. So I actually initially invited him to come out Wednesday and have a bit of a hammer in with Wilson and myself. And he wasn't available, but he turned around and said, "Look, I'm available on Thursday. Can I come out then?" I went, "Absolutely, no worries." So, and he's relatively, he's been making knives for a couple of years, but he's never had any formal lessons or anything like that. And so he came out on Thursday. So we did a little bit of knife making. I showed him a few tricks that I learnt off Sam Towns, our good friend over at one of our rival podcasts, and that's the Forgecast, of course. But yeah, so did a bit of a knife with him. Made a knife out of some leaf spring that he brought, and sent that off home with him. So I don't have it to show you or anything like that, because I'm a firm believer, give him a little bit of a sample of my work as well. So and that was pretty much forge to finish. And then, of course, yesterday, so it's late Sunday night, early Monday morning here. So Saturday was actually my wife's birthday, so we ended up going to and hanging out at a rodeo for her day. And then, of course, yesterday/today, being Sunday, was Mother's Day. So I just want to say happy Mother's Day. I know it's Mother's Day though over there in the US, so happy Mother's Day to all those of you that are mothers, stepmothers, grandmothers, or mother adjacent. Even if you aren't the care, you may not be the mother. You may be an adoptive mother. Not everyone's mothers are mothers that are directly in their family. I've known plenty of people over the years who have a second mum in their best mate's mum or their best friend's mum or something like that. And even those like yourself, Alexis, that are now grandmothers. So happy Mother's Day to you too. So
Thank you.
I want to send a special and for those lovely ladies that are listening, because of their husbands that are listening to it, happy Mother's Day to you too, and pass that happy Mother's Day on to your mothers or your daughters if they're mothers as well. So I went and seen my. I'm lucky enough to have two mums. Not in the sense of my mums are in a same-sex partnership, but I have my dad's wife, which are my dad's wife raised me from about the age of 9, and then of course I have my biological mother as well, and so I called my mum, my biological mum, today and said happy Mother's Day because she lives in Queensland, and I went and seen my dad's wife, my stepmum, my other mum. Went and seen her in person and dropped off a basket of goodies. Had some soaps and some candles and some Ferrero Rocher chocolates and a bottle of homemade Kahlua in there for her. So yes, you could have a little bit of a tipple of this evening when she decides to have her nighttime coffee. Which is something that people do apparently. I mean, I know I'm having a coffee at night time, but that's because I'm staying up all night. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So, a couple more people joined in. George Anderson, thank you for coming. And to answer your question, yes, my lawn has dried out. It's been dry for about a week or two now, thankfully. And the bottom far front corner of my block is still very, very soggy, but it is starting to dry out here, thankfully. And Chaz Walker, thank you for joining us. Has anyone else jumped in? Rob Lonis, thank you. And yeah, Alexis, did you have anything else to add? I saw you kind of
Really. No, I'm good. I'm just I was just putting a little bit more getting some hot water for my coffee grounds. Going to make another cup of coffee because I finished the Red Bull, and if I wasn't high energy enough before, I will be shortly. So
you'll, you'll smell colors.
that's it. No, I'm not doing shrooms. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
To be fair, that's no wait. I could hear colors.
Here
Yeah,
colors, yeah.
I could hear colors.
Uh,
And
So-
and I could smell touch. So
Yeah,
I mean,
see, yeah.
hey, it's always fun when you can combine senses in ways you didn't know was possible.
and taste thoughts. Yummy thoughts. Yamez, are you still there? Nope, Yamez might have left us. So Yamez is of course taking his mother out. Oh no, he's there.
I'm here. I'm just bouncing around.
Okay.
I'm bouncing around, so I put myself on mute so y'all can't hear me doing a whole bunch of random things.
So why don't you explain to our lovely viewers why you aren't in control of this madhouse today?
Because the pirate got pirated. It's a coup.
The real reason.
I've been demoted on my own channel. No, it is Mother's Day, and we are doing Mother's Day activities, visiting cemeteries, going to lunch, brunch, whatever, and all sorts of stuff. And yeah, kind of making a thing of it. So yeah, I will probably be ducking out here in the next couple of minutes, and that is why I am not in control, because if I were in control, then I'd have to just end the stream and be like, all right, sorry guys.
So that's
You could always just leave the you could always just leave the stream up and leave. You know what I mean?
And then,
we'd
and
have
then
no
it'll be
way.
like a freaking 7-hour stream.
We'd have no way of ending it.
We've never done that before.
See, it'd be interesting for the analytics to see how many people actually pop in and go, "Oh, yeah, man, hang on, I'm looking at an empty couch," and see how long they knowing how you get up and walk away from the couch sometimes, seeing how long they sit there for, waiting for you to come back.
Right?
It'd be funny.
And thank you for the compliment there on the hair.
And
Try.
To Ulfbert, your wife is most welcome. So Yamez, just let us know when you're about to go and say adios, and then you can probably just jump on the stream and join in for the chat while you're out and about.
For anybody,
I can try.
Anybody that's kind of wondering, I'm also streaming this on Twitch currently, and so like I'll occasionally like mention something there because I got the soundboard running to. I was gonna stream to my channel as well, but then I decided that was gonna be too complicated to do during this, without I'm worried about echo and a few other things, so I decided to not. It's just my Twitch, and then what we're doing here, and so I might occasionally make a comment to somebody there. And it's just for because I was trying, I'm gonna eventually I'll be streaming like gaming and stuff on the Twitch and maybe on my YouTube channel. I don't know. We'll see. That's why I changed the name over to Artist Studios, because the channel was going to be encompass multiple things, not just one subject. You know what I mean? Like Island Metal Forge is, with the exception of the show Alexis Unhinged, is mostly a blacksmithing centric show or channel, as is Speargrass Forge, and so mine is, and I do the blacksmithing content on Island Metal Forge, and so I'm gonna kind of transfer all the other stuff over to, or not transfer, but the other content will be on my channel for my content anyway. So, anyways, I'll quit. Bounce off the wall. Bounce off the walls.
Sorry about my cough, guys. I've had because of the change in weather here, it's starting to get a bit cooler, so I've picked up a little bit of a tickle in the back of my throat, and it's I wouldn't say I've got the flu, but just got a little bit of an aggravated tickle in the back of my throat. So nothing serious. But anyway,
You need a little bit of throat lotion. Then I mean,
Anyway.
Tish.
So let's get on to the topic of the month. So manipulating metal. Of course, last week we were talking about this, the intro to manipulating metal, how we manipulated metal. Now, last week, of course, was brought up about using a hold fast, which is one way of manipulating metal or controlling the metal while you're using it. And a funny thing, actually, while we were chiseling the incense burners to make them look like leaf, we actually used my shepherd's hook style hold fast on my anvil. It's the first time I've actually used it and had to use it repeatedly on this anvil. So that was really, really interesting to do. But that's just one method of manipulating metal. Now, last week I didn't get to join in, of course, because I was at work. But Alexis asked the interesting question of how you, when you first started forging, how you held onto your stock. Now, the way I did it, and Yama's got a little, when we were discussing this in the pre-stream, Yama's got his nose pushed out of a joint a little bit, because I said, back when I first started blacksmithing, which was when I was about 15, so that's over 20 years ago, and he's going, oh yeah, mister, I've been forging for 20 years, and I never said that, but he did. The gentleman which was teaching me, actually, the first thing we ever made was a pair of tongs. So, of course, like Yamaz, I started off with stock long enough to handle by hand without tongs. So that's always a good way to go. But when it came to doing the riveting, after we punched out the boss and made the jaws and stuff like that, we just made a simple pair of flat jaw tongs. We actually used long mechanics pliers. So your long needle nose mechanics pliers with the extra long handles. They're generally probably about half a foot long. That's what we used to pick the rivet up out of the forge and put it in the holes in the boss, so that we could make my first pair of tongs. And from then on, of course, we used those flat jaw tongs for whatever we needed to, making more tongs and whatnot. And then, of course, when I restarted again, the first thing I made was a pair of flat jaw tongs. And when I did the rivet for that, I just used made the rivet head and made it extra long, and then cut it off actually whilst it was. I know when I forged it over, it kind of bent over, and that was kind of like, that'll do. Give me a rough pair of tongs so I have something to handle. And those tongs ended up breaking and being really, really bad, but it got me to where I needed to go to make more tongs later on. So there you are, Alexis. That's the story of how I started both times.
No, and that's fair. I mean, obviously, I just, I hear a lot of stories about that, that were similar to mine, and so I assumed it was a fairly universal experience. But, I think most of us always, almost immediately realize it's like, I've got to make tongs, or I've got to buy tongs, or I've got to get tongs, because there's really no other way around that.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a way. There are lots of ways around it, but I mean, there's no real substitute that is as good. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
There is one, and I don't know if they're very common. I've only seen a pair in a hardware store once, and that is front projecting multi-grip pliers, or your channel lock pliers. Now, we've discussed it on this channel before, but it was a long time ago, and I'm not sure what it is off the top of my head, but channel lock pliers were actually patented as multi-grip blacksmith tongs, or to change sizes. So you can actually get channel lock pliers that basically are like a flat jaw or a front protruding set of tongs, as opposed to the more vice grip type pliers that you see. You can get them that jut out the front. I've only ever seen them in a hardware store once, but considering they were originally blacksmith tongs, they if you can get those front projecting ones, the parallel ones, they'd actually make a fairly good set of stand over tongs if you can get a hold of them.
I wanted to mention something as well. So, I tried the vice grips first, right?
Mhm.
And then, and obviously, I mean, like I had no idea how to make tongs, and so I watched some videos on it, and realized I didn't have anything I could make tongs out of. And so what I wound up doing was going and buying a pair of nippers, like hoof nippers, and then I cut a V in the blade on each one and welded in a little piece of half-inch angle iron. So I had like basically half-inch square or half-inch V-bit tongs that I made out of a pair of horses. I still have those. They're on my tong rack at home, and they're very rarely used. It's one of those things that's there when I go home on days off and I realize I forgot my hammers and my tongs at work, and I'm like, well, I'm down to these and my little homemade horseshoe tongs made out of horseshoes. And I often when I say horseshoe tongs, for me that means tongs made out of horseshoes, not tongs for horseshoes. So that can be kind of confusing sometimes.
Yep.
But yeah, I still have those tongs made out of nippers, and they still get used on occasion. So even though they're not the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of stock to make tongs out of, that's actually a really good conversation as part of this topic. Both of my initial sets of tongs, so the first sets of tongs I made both times, were all made of rebar, or Rio bar, as we call them here in Australia. Which was and for simple starter blacksmith tongs, flat jaw, or even slightly wolf jaw. And I'll get into those explanations of what we mean by flat jaw and wolf jaw and bolt jaw and all that type of thing. We'll get into that either today or sometime this month as we get deeper into. But for the time being, let's just talk simple flat jaw tongs, and that is where it's just got a simple flat rectangular bit out the front. The jaws are of course called bits. The center bit where the hinge is the anatomy is the boss, and then of course the handle part is what we generally call the reins. For those of you out there that may be listening that may not know some of the terminology or anatomy of tongs, so the area that grabs onto things is generally called the bit or the jaws. The hinge plate, the area where, think of a pair of pliers, where the hinge go through, or like a pair of scissors, that's generally called the boss. And of course, the bit they hang on to, generally called the reins. So, for flat jaw tongs, they're just nice, rectangular, flat surfaces, really great for holding on to things like sheet metal, or flat stock, as long as the flat stock isn't too thick. And it's a great beginner's pair of tongs because it shows a smith the steps of the initial sets of all tongs are generally follow. And you make both sides exactly the same. Then you flip them over and drill or punch a hole through the boss and rivet or bolt them together, as some people do. And that will generally give you a good pair of first tongs. So my first tongs on both of the occasions were made out of half-inch rebar that I basically just flattened the tip, flattened the boss, and kept exactly as they were. Half-inch is a very versatile size of steel for making very simple tongs. You don't really have to do too much. They were probably about a foot or 30 centimeters long. For those of us that are on metric, half-inch is about 12 millimeters. Go ahead, Alexis. I can see you went to say something.
I was going to mention, when you said rivet or bolt or whatever. So when I first started making my tongs, every time I'd go to rivet them together, of course, I've got inferior equipment at the time. And so when I go to rivet them together, I would always get the rivet mushrooming in between the two tong halves. You know what I mean? That whole situation, and it was really irritating. And so what I found to be a much easier workaround, which I still do most of the time, is I'll just throw a 5/16 bolt in there, snug it up tight, and then cut the bolt off even with the top of the nut, and then I'll just peen that nut and that bolt down together into a rivet. And I've never had a bolt do that spread that mushrooming thing in between the tong halves like I have with rivets. And I have yet to have one break. And in my mind, I'm thinking it's all there. It's a grade 5 bolt. It's also probably pretty soft. So if I need to split it to take the tongs apart, it should be fairly easy. I have not encountered that situation, but in theory.
Yeah, and look, there's
When
Okay.
when I make rivets, they're typically I make them out of 5160 because I just happen to have that size, 5160 material that's the right size, and that's what I wind up making my rivets out of. So
yeah.
continue. Sorry.
For me, most of my tong rivets, depending on the size of tongs I make, most of my tongs are quote unquote light duty tongs. So they're, for example, relatively light, generally made out of 12 mil or half-inch stock in general. Sometimes they're a bit bigger, but for lightweight tongs like that, a 6mm or 1/4 inch rivet is perfect. Don't need much bigger than that. From there, if I'm making, bit heavier duty tongs, I do have a few of those, particularly for knife making and stuff like that. I generally use an 8mm rivet, or that's 5/8. But yeah, a bolt works perfectly. Like there's no. Some people will go, that's not real smithing. It's real smithing in quotes. But it works, and I have a pair of, or I had a pair of tongs that were made around 1908 that had a coach bolt, and these are big tongs. These are tongs for holding 1.5 inch stock. These are big, heavy duty tongs, and they had a coach bolt in there as their hinge, as their rivet. And it was exactly how you explained, Alexis. It was in there, and then the bolt was on there, and it was peened over, and that's lasted well over 100 years.
Right, and the reason I peen it over was, well, besides it looking good, it's so it doesn't back out. You know what I mean? Like because if you just put the nut and the bolt on there and leave it, I mean, eventually you're going to be using them and they're going to get loose because the nut's going to back off. So I just peen it over like a rivet on both sides, and it will never, I mean, it bends all the threads and everything together so that it just turns it into a rivet. The only difference is in the middle there, it's got threads.
Yeah, that's it. And look, particularly when you're a beginner, getting or setting those rivets correctly is a skill that takes practice.
And also, I would like to add, if anybody's listening to this or whatever, if you're going to use a nut and a bolt as a rivet, in any case, always dip them in acid and get that the galvanizing off of them first. I always just, because it just takes a few seconds in my ferric chloride, and the galvanizing is gone. And so make sure you do that rather than like burn it off in the forge, because that's not really cool.
Yep. So we'll go through some of the comments while we're here. So most people are commenting on how they have a motley assortment of tongs. So do I. I have some ugly tongs. I have some pretty tongs. And who was it? Someone said that they have such a collection of tongs with stories that they're. George Anderson is working. He's working on an ammo box guitar. Sorry, that was the wrong one. Someone commented that they have such a collection of tongs that they're thinking about doing a video on them. And I go ahead. Some tongs have stories. If I knew more of the story of the 1.5 inch tongs that I have, I would probably do a video on it, but unfortunately I don't. I do know that they're from the Northern Territory. They were made up here, but that's about the extent of the story. I know they came from a mine site, and that their reins were broken at one stage and electro welded back on, and one of their reins was broken, electro welded on. But that's all I know. But yeah, like you've got there are a major range of tongs. And probably the week after next, I'll have a bit of a video or a slideshow on some of the different jaw types of the common jaw types you'll come across. But then you've got specialized tongs like Ben Toons was talking about rail spike tongs. They're a very specific set of tongs for a specific use. You generally are looking, they're more niche. And of course, with tongs, you can make them for whatever, and you should make them to suit the work that you're doing. Most of us in this direct community that speak to each other have seen videos or been there in person when a smith is using a set of ill-fitting tongs and they're hammering, they misstrike, or the stock gets loose, and there's stories going back hundreds of years of people losing eyes to and this isn't scale, this is a piece of red hot metal flying up and hitting them in the face, or getting burns. Go ahead, Alexis.
Oh, it's like that video I took at Quad State last year, where I'm just sitting there videoing Thomas, working on his spoon, fork, or whatever, and they got the wrong tongs for it, and it's just twisting every way. Every time he hits it, it twists, and then he hits it, and it just flies right up. And he's wearing safety glasses, but it knocks the hat right off his head, and it's like, woohoo!
Yep.
That was a close one, and I'm sitting there going, wow, I can't believe I just got that in a 10-second clip.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's ill-fitting tongs.
Yep. Then it's always, and I say whenever I have it, like when I had Wilson in the forge a few months back, we were trying to do a project, and the tongs that I had didn't fit, and so So I stopped, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "These tongs don't fit." And he goes, "Oh, well, that's all right." And I went, No. It's dangerous to not use tongs that don't fit. So it's going to take us 5 minutes of going in and reshaping these tongs to get a better fit. Then it will take for the 5 weeks or 5 months to recover from the injury that we get if this comes flying out at us or burns my house down or whatever. So 5 minutes, taking 5 to fix something saves a lot of time at the end of the day. So I reshaped them, and it didn't really take that much, and it wasn't really that long. And he was like, and when we got back to work, he was like, "Wow, these hold much better." I was like, "That's exactly right. Teach them right the first time, and then you won't have much problem." But moving on from there, the reason why this is so important is because if you can't have a good, solid hold on the material you're working, you're not working the material efficiently, and you may not be working the material right. It is such you'll be putting a lot more effort into chasing a piece around the anvil if you don't have a good grip on it than you would put more effort and more result from actually holding that material correctly. And that is true for everything from flat stock to rivets to chains, and particularly with chains. I don't know how many people out there have attempted to forge chains before, but chains are a really, really major pain to forge. Go ahead, Yamis.
Chains are easy. They're tedious, but they're easy.
I find them difficult to hold. So I'm assuming there's some chain tongs out there that are particularly for doing chain. But I know I've tried to do it, and it's just like the whole Thomas with the spoon and fork thing. It's just going I just can't get it to do what I want it to do with the tongs that I have. So I always give up after like halfway through the first link, and I'm like, all right, screw this.
Yep.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
And there is an actual design for chain tongs or chain makers tongs. and it's I actually, my chainmaker's tongs have actually taken on a dual role. So my chainmaker's tongs also double as the tongs that hold my touch mark whenever I touch mark something, because it's the perfect size to hold onto my touch mark. So basically, they look like needle nose type tongs, and then they've got a little semicircle on each side, and it's so that you can hold the side of the ring when you're forging it and manipulate it around whilst the other links of the chain hang down. And they're sized to hold, of course, if they should be sized to hold the particular size of stock that you're using. So if you're using, half or 5/8 inch stock for, making your chain, you have a 5/8 inch sized chain tong. If you're using, half inch, you have a half inch size, and so on and so forth. Of course, you can use, it's not recommended, but you can use a smaller size chain tong on a larger size diameter stock, but you'll be holding your hand open like this in order to actually grip the tongs. If you use a larger size chain tong or larger size tongs in general on a smaller stock, you're going to have too much gap, and it's going to bounce around a lot more. So it's very important that you use the right sized stock or right sized tongs for the stock that you're using. There's a joke. I can see you're grinning at a joke, Alexis. What? What?
Oh, no, it's all up in the chat. I mean, just like, John's talking about, last time we were talking about spreader bars. This time it's chains. What's this group coming to? And I was like, well, next is the cat of nine tails. And Kevin's all, next time it's going to be decorative shackles. And I was like, ooh, shackles. That's a way better choice than mine,
Okay. On that note, I actually have an order, two orders for sets of shackles. I'm waiting for the customers to get back to me with measurements to actually make those. And look, there is many smiths all over the world that make very good money catering to the communities that like to use those sorts of implements. So don't knock it until you get an order for it. You don't have to make it, but I like to make money.
I do got to roll. The door is knocking, so.
No worries, Yammer. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.
Yep. You guys have fun.
And say Happy Mother's Day to Jeannie for us.
Will do.
Bye,
Y'all have a good one.
See ya.
Bye.
Yeah. So as Eric just said, you adjust your tong jaws to your stock, and you adjust your reins. Tongs can be tweaked, exactly, and it can take as little as one heat to tweak your tongs. And one heat, depending on the type of forge you're using. If you're using a solid fuel forge, maybe it will take a minute or two. If you're using a gas forge, it can take as little as 50 to 60 seconds. If you're using an induction forge, it can take as little as 10 to 15 seconds to heat that up and then just adjust. Take the time to do it. It is safer. Do
you... Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All right. I was going to say, do you have any tong horror stories?
Yes.
Like making a set of tongs and you royally just screwed the pooch on them, or
okay,
or anything like, or I mean,
I have one from Wednesday when Wilson was here. So because I've been making a few more of these incense holders. On the bit that actually holds the incense, as you can see, it's a curl, right? And with this one, which was the first one I ever made, I used a pair of needle nose pliers. And so my hands were far too close to the hot metal, and it was hot, and it was like, I don't like this feeling. So I decided to make a pair of scrolling tongs. And it was like, because Wilson and I were making a couple more of these incense holders, it was like, yep, it's imperative today. I'm going to make, before we get too far into it. And this is part of the reason why my ring broke, is I was setting up and doing what I needed to do. And so I was making a pair of scrolling tongs. And on one of the tongs, I set the boss back to front. So, one of the methods of making tongs is the turning method. So you do the jaws, you turn 90 degrees, you set the boss, you turn 90 degrees, you set for the reins, and so you pick a direction for both sets of tong jaws. You either go right all the time, or you go left all the time. Well, on one set I went right, and the other set I went left, not thinking and not processing which way I turned the first time. And so I'd made the jaws back to front. And so for those of you that haven't made tongs, when you make them opposite like that, they don't sit correctly. And so when it got time to me setting the rivet, it was they weren't quite sitting right. I couldn't figure out why until I realised I'd had them back to front. And so Wilson was here by that stage, and I didn't really have time to go back and make another set. And so I set the rivet, and he's noticed that because they were visibly backwards. And he's noticed, he goes, they don't look right. And I said, they aren't right. I've messed them up. I've gone the wrong way. And he's gone, what are you going to do? I said, well, the wonderful thing about blacksmithing is when something's wrong like that, you heat it up and you can change it. So once I had the rivet set, I heated them up and got them moving. And he'd never seen things finished before. So, one of the methods of making sure that they move easily once they're riveted together is to heat them back up with the rivet and then work them whilst they're hot, and that gets at all the steel shaves and stuff like that, and it gets able to keep moving. And so once that was done, I stuck them back. Once they were nice and fluid and got moving, I stuck them back in the forge and then manipulated the jaws so that they sat equally, and then squeezed the reins together so they're one of the ugliest sets of tongs I've ever made, including my very beginner's tongs. But when it came to scrolling, because I did the nice taper and round them off and stuff like that, when it came to scrolling the coils to holding the thing, they worked. And he went, wow, these work really well. I went, they do. So I'm not changing them. I've made them now, and they've gone up on my tong rack. I was just planning on, once we did the job, just turfing them, but they worked well enough. I was like, yeah, no, they're ugly, but they work. Don't gotta look good to work.
Yeah.
And the other horror story I have. Go ahead.
No, go ahead there.
I'll say the other story I had was right back from when I first started my YouTube channel, and I was using a pair of tongs that I'd made from rebar, and this is one of the reasons why I don't recommend using rebar for tongs. Is I'd gotten them hot plenty of times, and as we know, as you're working with metal, steel, particularly if you have them in the forge and stuff like that, you should cool your tongs off regularly, so A, they don't burn you, and B, they don't get too soft and lose their grip on whatever you're using. However, as we all know, rebar is kind of the sausage meat of metals, and it contains everything. And so I'd used these enough that I'd heated them up and cooled them down enough that one time I was holding something and hammering it on the anvil, and then one of the jaws snapped, and the piece went flying up past my ear at red hot, and I was kind of like, why did that come out? And I looked at the tongs, and I'm missing a jaw. And so I was kind of like, oh, okay. And they went into the scrap bin, and I went and chased down the piece of steel that had gone flying, picked it up with another pair of tongs, and yeah, luckily avoided serious injury. But so be aware of that if you're using something like high carbon steel or something that maybe questionable steel like rebar. Be aware that over time And this will even happen to mild steel tongs. It's one of the reasons why you should always check your tools before you use them, because these are tools. They will fatigue, just like a punches and stuff like that mushroomed over. Check your tools, make sure they don't have any cracks or anything like that, so that you don't end up with an injury. It takes 2 seconds. I didn't check at the time. Now I check. So that was my other horror story.
So yeah, so what I did is one of the first sets of tongs I wanted to make was a set of pickup tongs. And the reason for that was so I could move the bricks around. I mean, my fire bricks, because, you put them up in front of the forge, they get all hot, and you can't always just slide them out of the way. One hits the ground. Well, now it's on the ground. How do I pick it up and put it back? And so I was making a set of pickup tongs specifically. I mean, it's also good for picking up and moving around large billets that are hot, like hammer billets and whatnot. But it was good. It was to make the brick moving around easier. And so I decided I was going to make them out of 5/8 square mud flap hanger spring steel, and I was going to do it's a piece that's probably 18, 20 inches long, something like that. And so I'm going to do a nib on each end, or quite a long area. Maybe 5 inches back is where I put the boss or something like that. And so I set down for the nibs, and then I drew all of that out into, like, I don't know, maybe 3/8 round. And so, like, I have them. I mean, they're like, by the time I get the nibs all drawn out, they're like, I want to say 9 inches long, something like that. And I set the bosses, and then I did a diagonal cut with an angle grinder all the way from one boss to the other, they taper, right. And then I rounded all of that out. So I forged the reins all the way down to round. I had the boss, I had the nibs, and then while I was heating it up in a coal forge to bend, because I'd already riveted them together, and I went to make the bends in the nibs, so so that they're curved and all that. And I burned one of them off like 3 inches from the boss,
That's gotta
and I was
suck.
just like, and I mean, like, at this point, I'm into these things for like 10 hours, right? Because I'm fresh, I'm new at this, and I'm working on a Harbor Freight anvil, and it's just like, and I burned that one nib off, and I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. No. And then I took it, I cleaned it up, I stuck it back on there. It's a little bit shorter now, and I attempted to forge weld it back on, but that wasn't happening. So I wound up MIG welding it back on, and I still have those tongs. I still use them for moving the bricks around. And there's this big old chunk on one side that's about the size of my thumb, where I dirt daubered a bunch of MIG weld to put that thing back together. And yeah, that was I was just heartbroken when I was that long into making a set of tongs, and the very last step, I burned them.
Yep. That would have been absolutely heartbreaking. So yeah, and that's your worst horror story.
Yeah, probably so. I mean, like, I've had them where I've, like, the stocks moved around too much, like, especially when I first bought the quick tongs or whatever, the Ken's Custom Iron quick tongs, and or rapid tongs, whichever ones I got. And I put them together, and I didn't quite do it right, and and they were very clunky, and um and then I tried to reshape them and tried to reshape them, and I just could never get it right. And then I wind up just winging them out into the yard and be like, I'm not doing it anymore.
Yep.
But yeah, no, the set that I burned up was probably the worst ones. I'm pretty sure I've done a set backwards before as well, where I've turned the wrong way on when I doing my set downs. But that's usually easy to correct if you catch it in time. I don't think I caught it when I went to go put it together. I think I caught it at right after I set it down. I'm like, wait a minute, turn it. Okay, get the one that I already did, and I set it down, and I turn it on the anvil so I can look at it, and I get the other one. I'm like, nope, I went the wrong way.
Yep.
I haven't gotten all the way to the riveting before I realized it, but yeah.
Yep. No, that's completely understandable. So yeah, that's pretty much our stream for today. We've been going for an hour. Nice, and we're keeping it on time. You know what? Without Yamas here, we haven't gone we haven't gone chasing squirrels.
I know, isn't that weird?
Yeah, that's really weird.
I'm usually the one that chases the squirrels, but maybe Yamas is the one that just drops them.
That's it. But on that note, we will wrap up for today, and let everyone get to spending time with their mums, with their wives, with their children, and making the day special. But before we do that, Alexis, do you have any final thoughts?
My final thoughts. Yeah. God dang it. My final thoughts are. Oh, it's this phone. All right, it stopped. My final thoughts are fairly. Tongs are a necessary part of what we do. At some point in time, you could be like Yamas and be like, I don't need no tongs. I just get a long piece of metal. Well, sometimes you got your. God dang it! I'm freaking live, man. Anyways, yeah, that's all I got. I'm getting distracted here, and I'm gonna strangle somebody here in a minute. So, uh, 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 Adam, what are your final thoughts?
Well, before we get into that, I just want to say thanks for joining us. Don't forget, you can join us every Sunday now at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's currently 12:30 a.m. Australian Central Standard Time on early Monday morning or late Sunday night. You can find Yames, our usual host, here at islandmetalforge YouTube. You can also find him on Discord. You can find Alexis at Transcendental Artist Studios on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can find me, Adam, at Speargrass Forge on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And if you find us, you can find us on your favourite podcast provider. We generally upload every Wednesday when we've got a backlog of of editing done. Sometimes we get a little bit behind on that, but we do try and upload fairly frequently. And don't forget to leave us a star rating on that, so that we and to like and share and subscribe, of course, to those, so that we can get us out to more people and share the love of blacksmithing. And on that, final thoughts is get out there and try something new. If you have tongs and you're struggling, take some time, make some new ones, or adapt the ones you've got to make them fit your stock. Is much better to be safe than to recover, and that's basically the way it is. Things might break, things might hit you, and you can take the time to be safe by changing them rather and putting less effort in by changing them than to not and end up injured or end up something breaking or end up with shoddier work. So that's basically it. I want to remind everyone to call your mums, go see your mums. Go see your grandma, spend some time with them. You never know just how little you've got, and make sure you tell them you love them. And just like you love them, we love you. And thanks for joining us. And you all have a wonderful day. And we'll catch you next weekend.
Yep. See y'all.
Bye.
Down in old Kentucky, where horseshoes are lucky, there's a village smithy standing under the chestnut tree. Hear the hammer knocking, see the anvil rocking. He sings the boogie blues while he's hammering on the shoes. See the hot sparks a flying like 4th of July. He's even got the horses clomping bob down the avenue. Folks love the rhythm, the clang, bang, and rhythm. You get a lot of kick out of the blacksmith blues.
Down in old Kentucky, the horseshoes are lucky. There's a village smithy standing under the chestnut tree.